The story begins in a world where everyone uses magic in their daily lives. But there is a boy in the forest who has no magic. His name is Mash, and his existence goes against the natural harmony of the world. He lives in a cube with his father Regro, where they enjoy their life together. Every time Mash comes home, he always breaks the door, forgetting whether to push or pull. Regro gets angry, Mash apologizes and tries to fix it. When he tries to put the door back, the problem only gets worse. Then, they go to sleep together, and because Mash doesn't know how to use magic, Regro is trying to strengthen his body to be the strongest even without Mahika. Munit doesn't know this, so Mash continues to ask why his training is only physical. Regro comes out and warns Mash not to take any risks in the city while he's away. Munit, after his father leaves, he immediately runs to the city wearing a cloak, wanting to try a limited edition of Krimpa from the bakery. As he walks around the city, he sees people using Mahika. Munit thinks it is nothing special, because the things they do can also be done with their hands. Later, Mash finds the bakery and orders some Krimpuff. When he paid, all his bars were bent because he clenched his fist in excitement. However, the waiter thought that the bars should not be easily bent. Tony Mash straightened the bars to their original shape and the waiter was shocked. After a while, Mash was about to take his food, but the wind blew, his face was exposed to the public, and everyone was surprised because he had no marks on his face. Meanwhile, an official named Brad at the police station was reading the newspaper about this year's Divine Visionary, a title given to the top student of the Magic Academy, which also included several promotions and rewards. The phone just rang and he was told about a man walking around the city with no marks on his face. While Mash was walking in Kale, he wondered why everyone was looking at him, but he was just eating a Krimpuff. Mash bumped into a drunk official named Terry, who in turn took off his uniform and scolded him. In anger, Terry slammed the food in his hand while continuing to spit out harsh words. However, Mash took off the official's uniform, but Mash had good intentions, telling Terry to wash it for him. At that moment, Brad arrived, asking Terry why he was naked. He looked at Mash, thinking he was the man mentioned in the report, so he approached him. But Regro arrived and grabbed his son and ran away, while Brad gassed a magical bird to follow them. Upon arriving home, Regro scolded his son for going to the city despite his warning. However, he still forgave Mash in the end, but punished him by repeating his Ahir Sesho, and Mash immediately left home to practice. Regro thought Mash was a really good boy, and he couldn't blame him for wanting to go to the city since he had been hiding in the forest his whole life. Meanwhile, Regro was wondering how he would deal with the police when he saw Brad's bird watching them from his window. Brad arrived with his men just as Regro was about to leave. Mash continued his training in the forest, lifting the barbell like it was just paper and immediately finishing his workout. Within 5 minutes, he returned to the house, but as he opened the door, he heard Brad explaining that the Mahika had improved because they had removed all the people who could not use the magic required by the sacrificial fire for a better world. Brad pushed Regro away, telling him that hiding without a mark was a serious offense, but Regro refuses to tell them about his son's whereabouts. In a flashback, Regro is always considered a failure in everything he does. This continues until he reaches adulthood and contemplates ending his own life, when he suddenly hears a baby crying. Regro realizes that the baby was abandoned because he has no mark, and thinking that they are both unwanted by society, he decides to raise the baby as his own. At that moment, Regro tells Mash to go to jail, but Brad starts beating him up. Just as he is about to finish Regro off, Mash breaks down the door and punches one of the officers, who sends him flying. Terry and Mash grabbed him, but Mash took off his uniform, slapping him repeatedly until he fell to the ground. Mash then revealed that he didn't run because Regro was his only family, but Brad just laughed at him, thinking that he had no chance since he didn't know how to use magic. He attacked Mash with a spell that could kill a dragon, but Mash just slapped it with one hand and Brad couldn't believe what he saw. Brad followed up with a stronger spell, but Mash deflected it, causing it to explode in another area. Brad continued to attack with his mahika, while Mash just deflected his attacks and looked like he was having fun. He took his father's one, while Brad tried to defend himself thinking that Mash could use magic. But Mash threw the one at Brad, who broke through his barrier. Mash threatened to kill Brad the next time he threatened his family. But Brad proposed a deal where Mash would enroll in a magic academy and become a divine visionary in order to be accepted by society. Brad said that if they did not accept his deal, they would be hunted for the rest of their lives, so Mash agreed to their deal. With a pecking mark on his face, he went to a prestigious school called Eastern Academy, which is known to be the hardest when it comes to exams and only has a passing rate of less than 3%. The next day, a man named Lucci was looking at the applicants gathered at Philb and recognized some of their faces. He suddenly heard a loud noise and saw Mash lifting his head, which confused Lucci because it was not the place for him to rehearse an issue. However, Lucci calmed himself down and looked back at Philb, where he saw Mash reading a fitness book while doing the invisible chair, and he even noticed Brad and Rigo behind him trying to keep an eye on Mash. Lucci suddenly appeared in front of them, pretending that he was the one who failed the exam. The applicants were impressed because they recognized him as a very knowledgeable person. While they were picking up Lucci, Mash commented on his unnecessary grand entrance, which angered Lucci and wanted Mash to fail. Lucci announced that he would regret it since the first exam that the applicants ordered to be quiet, while he used a spell to prepare the venue, which amazed everyone. But Mash did not budge, telling him that he could just take them to a room when everything was ready, and further annoying Lucci. When the exam started, the applicants were handing in their papers, but the questions were moving around the page, making it difficult for them to read. Lucci has put magic on the papers, so they need to remove the magic to pass the test. Brad and Rigo think Mash will be doomed, but Mash orders the words to stop moving, while he drops his pen, causing the words to rearrange themselves in fear. He quickly completes the test, and Lucci is surprised to see that everything is perfectly aligned. Mash continues to use his superhuman abilities to pass the rest of the test, surprising everyone as Lucci thinks of a way to eliminate Mash. Lucci is led through a maze that emerges from the ground, giving applicants 30 minutes to reach its goal. A woman named Lemon approached Mash wanting to join her, so they started walking together, but she kept falling into traps, and Mash realized that she was useless. While Mash had her back turned, she used a spell to stop her and told her that there was a reason why she needed to keep Mash away from the goal. Mash easily got lost and ran away quickly because she also had reasons to pass the exam. Then, one of them approached Lemon and asked her about her buktong, but she didn't answer, so she attacked her. However, Mash punched her and returned the punch. Lemon wondered why she had knocked her down, and Mash explained that they were there for a similar reason, so he felt sorry for her. However, Lemon was worried that they wouldn't make it in time to finish the exam, but Mash had a plan. Meanwhile, Lucci was confident that Mash would be shocked, but the ground shook when they heard loud noises. The walls collapsed as Mash reached them. He managed to make the mist to make a move. The other successful applicants called him Monlolo-ko, saying that he was already eating, but Lemon told them that Mash was innocent, and he confessed that he had been tricked, that he could enter the school if he could get rid of Mash. Lucci admitted this, saying that he didn't like Mash, while he unleashed his magical powers. He announced to them that he would be firing Namish and Lemon and asked them if they wanted to contest his decision. But Mash crushed Lucci's one with his fist, while telling the professor that he was too much of a bully. At that moment, the head guru, Wahlberg, arrived, informing them that they had repented since the last interview, and that he would now act as the examiner. Mash was the first applicant to be interviewed, so he was taken to a room where he would be surrounded by school officials. He was asked several questions, and the officials did not seem to like his answers. However, the head guru found Mash interesting, asked him why he had saved the girl even though he didn't have enough time left. Mash told him that he had a feeling he would regret not saving the girl, and Wahlberg realized that Mash was the type to act before thinking, explaining that there were only a few stronger than him, and he wondered if Mash would act that way if he was faced with a different kind of person. Wahlberg used his Mahika to release a large monster that threatened to attack a doll containing the soul of Mash's most beloved person, revealed to be Regro. Mash tried to stop it by punching it, but it didn't work and his hand began to bleed. The school officials were shocked when he used his hands to stop the monster attacks the doll. Wahlberg realizes that Mash is someone who can protect the weak and fight the strong, so he removes the monster and lights candles, showing that Mash is just being tested while being accepted into the Eastern Magic Academy. The next day, the students are in class where they will learn the lock opening spell, which is considered basic. The guru demonstrates this, but Mash only uses his hands to break the lock, which angers the guru because he doesn't even use magic. Mash explains that he is not good at magic, while the boy next to him, Finn, begins to see him as a problem. After class, Finn searched for his dorm, hoping he wouldn't be with Mash. Eventually, he found his room. The door was missing, and he saw Mash holding it, which made him understand that they would be sharing a room. They met each other, and Finn began to think that Mash was a normal man, until he suddenly introduced Finn to his muscles, which made him think Mash was crazy. Mash asked Finn if he could borrow the suitcase for the next class, because he had brought a giant suitcase and thought it was a suitcase. Finn allowed it, and the next day, the guru trained them to fly with the suitcase. Mash tried to do this, but the suitcase didn't respond to him, so he just kept on teasing him, making the class slow down. Mash suddenly kicked the ground and the suitcase flew towards his hand. The students called him a trickster, saying that he didn't use magic, while pretending to be the guru of the time trial to see how fast they could fly with their suitcases. The man challenged Mash to a race where the loser had to follow the winner until they graduated. Mash accepted the challenge, so they prepared for the race. Meanwhile, his instructor wondered if he could ride his suitcase. He started the race anyway, and Mash immediately won, setting a new world record for his speed. Everyone was shocked because they didn't even see Mash move. Finn saw Mash throw his suitcase and jump so that he could ride while it was still in the air. The student accused Mash of cheating and felt sorry for him, so he withdrew his challenge. The man continued his speech. He was about to give a thumbs up when a student named Cavill came up. He apologized on behalf of his friend. Everyone knew that Cavill was a bad person, so they were worried about Mash. Thinking that he would be a target, Cavill introduced himself to Mash, but Mash mispronounced his name as Cabbage, so everyone fell silent. Cavill was about to cast a spell, but the guru approached, letting them know that they were in the middle of class. So Cavill told him to meet him after class, and left the scene. As he was returning to their room, Finn revealed that Cavill was the son of a high-ranking member of the Bureau of Magic. He added that Mash would be killed if he talked to Cavill, because his family had a bad, close relationship with the vice principal, and Finn had actually seen the students suffering because of Cavill, so he will understand why everyone is afraid of him. Mash starts baking cream puffs by himself, enjoying the experience while Cavill waits for him at the fill, and he gets angry that Mash doesn't show up. The next day, Mash takes out his book for his next class. It is in such a state of panic that Cavill approaches him, asks why he didn't show up, and apologizes, saying that he was too busy making cream puffs, which annoys Cavill even more. Cavill asks him if he wants to become a divine visionary, saying that he can help Mash achieve his goal by using his connection to the vice principal, if Mash would follow his orders. Mash immediately agreed to this, and he became Cavill's apprentice, following his every command as part of their agreement. Mash was getting ready for his next class, when he was told that his book on the subject was Rang Sarana. Finn reluctantly agreed to share his book, and Mash thought he was lucky to have a friend like Finn. Mash gave Cavill some water when he poured it on the floor and ordered Mash to clean it up. While Mash was cleaning the floor, Cavill ordered Finn to take care of Mash's books. When he was bored, he also wanted to wash Mash's clothes. According to Jinnafin, Finn refused to comply, so Cavill used his Mahika to bring Finn to his knees and beat him. After a while, Mash arrived on the scene, asking Cavill what he was doing. Cavill told him that he wanted to apologize. Finn started crying as he confessed that he had destroyed Mash's books under Cavill's orders, apologizing for his actions. Kaval asked Mash if he wanted to have dinner with the vice principal, but Mash approached him and slammed his head on the floor, knocking him down. Finn told Mash that he was going to be expelled, making him realize that he was in trouble. Vice Principal Foreman arrived shortly after, announcing that Kaval's father entrusted him with taking care of his son. Foreman witnessed the entire incident, calling it a violent confrontation with Kaval, so he would hold a meeting with him at school to discuss what they did. He mentioned that their status was different from Kaval's, so he deserved special treatment, even if they were called crazy. As his mouth continued to open, Mash rushed towards him and used his knee to his face, while the others trembled in fear. Mash explained that since Foreman was not open to reason, he thought he would just beat him up because Mash would get in trouble. Still, Foreman threatened to remove him while he was trying to cast a spell, but Mash smeared dirt on his face. He dug a hole in the floor and put Foreman in, while Mash proceeded to cover it. He warned Mash that he would not be able to escape, but Mash threatened to bury him alive. After this, Mash was summoned by the head guru, who told him that he had received a notice from the Bureau of Magic to expel Mash. The Bureau of Magic was the highest legal authority in the land, and the divine visionaries created by the Academy were at its core. He reminded Mash of the status quo, but he followed the advice because he didn't want good people to be harmed. Wahlberg also gave a talk about the current state of the world because it only serves the elites. He thinks it needs more people like Mash, who are willing to sacrifice themselves to do what is right, and he even wants Mash to become a divine visionary. Mash mentioned that he plans to become a divine visionary, so the head guru explained the way to become a divine visionary, but Mash didn't understand all the information. Wahlberg kept it simple, telling him that he just needed to get high scores and collect as many coins as possible. He assured Mash that he would take care of the Bureau of Magic and the vice principal, and Mash left. The next day, the captain of the duel team, Tom, invited him to represent their dorm in a game, similar to Quidditch from Harry Potter. Mash said that he could not eat the broom, so Tom did not believe him and joined the team. When the game began, the opponent took the ball and Mash was still on the ground, while he repeated that he could not eat the broom. Most of the people thought that he did not help at all, so they picked on him and threw things at him. His team was about to lose and Tom went to him to explain the rules of the game. They had to get the ball into the opponent's ring to score points, and the use of magic was forbidden because the game was about the Wally's method. Tom was about to return to the game and the enemy captain deliberately hit him, causing him to fall. Mash looked at him as if Tom had broken some of his bones and asked the enemy captain about his sense of sportsmanship, but the enemy captain didn't care, declaring that winning was what mattered to him before returning to the game. Tom knew that his team was about to lose, but he told Mash that winning was not important and that playing his best game was more important. However, the opponent only had 50 points and the captain thought they were close to winning, but they seemed to be angry with Mash, who grabbed his suitcase and jumped into the air. He maintained his position by kicking around quickly, which led to the confusion of the spectators. He gained possession of the ball, while the enemy team was coming towards him, but he used his inhuman strength to throw the ball, which swept the opponents away and scored a point. The crowd was surprised when the ball spun around, returning to Mash as if by lightning. He repeated the same move to score more points, while everyone in the audience is in disbelief. Their score in the game reaches 999, which makes them the winner, and the Academy recognizes their score as a record and gives them silver coins as a reward. Finn thinks his performance is unbelievable, but Mash doesn't want to play that game again, while he hugs him and Tom and thanks him for helping the team win. Later, a student who is excited is reading a newspaper which has a long story about Mash's success. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam and destroys his picture while confirming Mash's next target. In their class, Tom forces him to practice for their game while Lemon wants him to study with her, but Mash is not interested in spending time with them. At that moment, Lance appears and Lemon recognizes him as the student who topped the entrance exam. Lance tries to do something fun, takes out a special magical tool and opens it, causing Mash's friends to disappear, and they are trapped inside a bottle. Lance tells him to go to the forest if he wants them back, and then suddenly disappears. They search the forest where Lance reveals that he was also looking for coins, which reveals 2 silver coins. Most people only have 1 magic line on their face, but there are rare cases where a person has more magic lines indicating that they are stronger when it comes to magical powers. Lance challenged him to a duel where each player threw a silver coin, and Mash accepted his challenge. Lance took out his wand using a spell to prepare the area for their fight. After clearing the area, Mash tried to knock him down with his fists, but Lance used a gravity spell to slam him to the ground. Mash struggled as he tried to stand up, but Lance told him that no one had ever escaped his spell. However, Mash punched the ground, pulled out a giant axe, and split the ground beneath his opponent, forcing Lance to retreat. He fell to his knees and was crushed by Mash's ridiculous power as Mash charged at him. He tried to stop Mash with the same gravity spell, but Mash used his speed to escape and tried to punch him, but Lance narrowly avoided his attacks. However, his coin fell to the ground, and Mash picked it up out of curiosity. He opened it, revealing a picture of Lance's sister, and Lance admitted that he had a sister complex, and told him to return it. Lance asks him what the most important thing in the world is, and Mash answers that it's the Krimpath. Unfortunately, Lance tells him that he's a Malik, and the only correct answer is his younger sister, which makes Mash think he's a monster. Lance threatens to throw his friends into the abyss, saying he'll use them to help him win the fight. In a flashback, Lance's sister is suffering from an incurable disease that's interfering with her magical powers. Without her magical powers, she must be removed because those with weak magic have no right to live in their world. So Lance wants to become a divine visionary to remove his sister from the system. In the meantime, Lance threw the bottle, using a magic spell to speed up the process. Mash changed his workout gear first. Ong was in the starting position and suddenly rushed in with a very fast movement, so he disappeared from Lance's sight. Lance tried to look for him and suddenly Mash appeared behind him. He couldn't believe that Mash had recovered the bottles so quickly, thinking that he could be used by the Mahika. However, Mash was no longer interested in fighting because he knew that Lance was not a bad person, and Mash declared that the bottle he dropped was empty. He rushed to Lance to get the real bottle and freed his friends. Lance surrendered to the Tongolian and handed over his silver coin before leaving. As he was walking away, Mash noticed that Lance was indeed a handsome man and surrounded him by his friends who thanked him for saving them. Meanwhile, there were 3 dorms in the academy that divided students based on their characteristics. The Adler dorm, where Mash was represented courage. The Orca dorm was for wisdom, and the Lang dorm was for ambition, and the 3 dorms had a Tongolian in the middle of the academy. Mash gathered his silver coins and the 5, equal to a golden coin. He rested with Finn, who suddenly started to sideline because they hadn't done their potion assignments yet. Lance arrived, calling them slackers for forgetting their assignments and worried that they would ruin their dorm's reputation. Monet used his necklace to attack him, and when he saw his younger sister, he threw himself at her, knocking her down. Lance then asked to help him reveal a screaming mandrake used for the assignment, a plant that became useful to the cap after it was silenced. He showed them the spell to put it to sleep, and he told them to imitate it. Finn opened the spell, but it didn't put it to sleep. Mash argued that it was because his core muscles were too weak, but when Mash tried the spell, his mandrake started to lose its power. They gave Finn some pointers telling him that his magic was on at one point, and Finn put his mandrake to sleep. Meanwhile, Mash's mandrake became very large, was acting up, but Mash just gave it a slap and it fell down. Lance continued to prepare the mandrake, saying that it was quite easy, showing them how it was done. He cooked it and he made a potion. Finn thinks it's not easy, but trusts Mash, who says it's no problem, because it doesn't require any Mahika. So he repeats the steps Lance showed him, but in the end he makes a Krimpath. Lance thinks he forgot something, so he watches Mash and guides him step by step, but it still comes out as a Krimpath, which confuses Lance. Despite all his attempts, it always comes out as a Krimpath, but the Krimpath is really delicious. Meanwhile, Headmaster Wahlberg is thinking about the upcoming cross-dorm of the campus class, and he worries if Mash will be okay. A student named Barrett meets the other students, who he belittles and calls them side characters. Langdorm believes that leaders should have great power, thinking that the Adder dorm is not worthy, so the headmaster orders them to collect all the coins from the Adder students. The next day, the Langdorm and Adder dorms have a class together in the forest. Mash is discussing what they will do in class, and they notice Barrett, who walks by and announces that he is the main character. Mash thinks Barrett is weird, but Barrett thinks Mash is a side character and that his appearance is a joke. But Lemon arrives and asks Mash if they can go together. Thinking of Barrett and spitting on Mash's face, he begins to worry about how Mash will ever get the attention of a woman. He thinks that because of people like Mash, he can't get a woman. So he wants to join the Bureau of Magic so he can get rid of all the handsome men in the world. However, the group ignores him and makes him even more jealous. However, the professor arrives explaining their next class. They are assigned to catch scorpions in the forest and throw rocks at their heads. Regular rocks cost a bronze coin, but the stronger ones cost a. The scorpion had a square stone worth a penny. The professor had already cleared them, and Mash announced that he was targeting the silver coins. However, he was suddenly approached by a student named Silva whose friends had witnessed their game and made him even more angry as he attacked Mash with a metal rod. The professor stopped them and Silva said that they were just arranging something. Mash looked at him, but in the end Lance stopped him by revealing that Silva was a year older than them. But because he was a troublemaker, Silva remained a first-year student. Lance warned him to avoid Silva and Mash was glad that he didn't. His Crimpuff was destroyed. They went to the forest and Lance thought that they should work together. But that Mash was not there because he was the one who left. He met Barrett, who started to go crazy when he saw Mash. But he only wanted to slap her. Barrett wanted to fight him, but suddenly they heard a scream when they saw a woman being attacked by another student. She screamed for help, and there was an explosion that defeated the man. The woman thanked Barrett for leaving her alone, and she started to lose heart. She tried to act cool, but when he held her hand, she gradually started to like him. Meanwhile, Silva managed to defeat a scorpion and got the square stone on its head, but it seemed that he was looking for something else. The woman thanked Barrett again as their knees touched. Barrett was overwhelmed and began to hit his head on the ground. But the woman was using magic to make Barrett so that anyone he attracted would be attracted to her. She tried to use her magic on Mash, but Mash said it had no effect on him. The girl was shocked that the magic was not working on Mash, so she tried to use more energy, grabbed his hand, but it still had no effect and left him destroyed. Barrett came to his senses and the woman explained that she was threatened by Silva, who was forcing her to use her strange magic. Barrett rushed to help her, and at that moment they were suddenly attacked and Silva disappeared. However, Barrett decided to fight Silva to help the woman. He attacked with a barrage of fireballs that ended in a huge explosion. Meanwhile, Naffin and Lemon were clinging to Lance as they screamed for help. But Lance was worried if Mash was okay because Silva was targeting him. Barrett thought he had won, but as the smoke cleared, Silva appeared, protecting himself with his irons. He immediately attacked Barrett with his magic and Mash's Crimpuff caught in his hand. Silva continued to taunt them to fight him while Mash just stared at the loss of his Crimpuff. Barrett began to worry, thinking that there was a big difference in their Mahika power. He thought Mash was useless, so he decided to do everything he could to save the girl. Silva started to taunt him, saying that his Mahika was weak and calling him low class. Silva decided to give them food and said that if he could withstand 5 of his attacks, he would let the girl go, even if it meant taking a silver coin in accordance with the Academy's rules. The girl thought it was a ridiculous deal, that she could be seriously injured, but Barrett accepted it, thinking he could handle 5 attacks. However, Silva said that Mash was also part of it, so he had to agree too. Barrett said that Mash was not involved, but Silva insisted that he was, so Barrett decided to do all 10 attacks to knock Mash out. Silva thought he was angry and started attacking with his iron fist. Barrett fell to his knees after only 1 attack, but managed to get up. Silva continued to attack with his spell, and Barrett continued to be hit with iron pillars as the woman and Mash watched. After he was attacked, Barrett was still standing, wondering how the woman had cried out for his help. Meanwhile, Silva prepared a very powerful attack for the final spell. He unleashed the attack and Barrett fell, and Silva began to faint, but somehow Barrett managed to get up. He approached Silva and said it was over, but he suddenly fell and Silva called him a fool. Barrett asked Mash to take the woman and went to the bathroom, but revealed that the woman was actually working for Silva and that he called her Lauren, and said that he hates male helpers. Silva is being a bit of a dick because he's so easy to fool, but his mouth is just full of crimpuff. Mash thinks they're going too far and decides to join the fight. He announces that he'll join the 10-hit challenge, telling Silva to give it his all. Meanwhile, his friends have already taken out a scorpion, but Lance is worried if Mash will be okay. Lemon thinks he'll be fine since he even beat the professor in their entrance exam. But Lance explains that there are other types of magic users. There are white Salamancaro who are more academic and focused on support, and there are red Salamancaro who are focused on combat, and Mash is really only fighting white Salamancaro for now. Lance thinks that if Mash were to fight any red-haired Caro in his last year, there would be many stronger than him. Meanwhile, Silva thinks that Mash is just pretending to be strong, and he even says how much he hates those weaklings who pretend to be strong, that he sees them as hypocrites and enjoys crushing them. He notices that his robe is partially created from the magic of Ivat, so he prepares an attack, but Mash rushes at him and he does some counters. Mash is knocked back and Silva starts laughing thinking he is stronger, and he mentions how he got 2 gold bars in his first year at the academy. He then attacks Mash with his magic and Mash is beaten, but Mash catches Silva's spell and crushes it with his hand. However, Mash was preparing to use tricep magic and Silva thought he was just joking. Silva continued to attack with his irons. Muniat Mash moved aside and started destroying them. Silva was hit directly. He fell down and his blood started spreading all over the place, and he wondered what was happening. Silva thought his magic was the highest level even among second-year students as he swallowed the D-Assad of a counterattack. Muniat Mash just broke it, which caused another blow to him. Silva fell to his knees and realized that he couldn't win. He knew he couldn't fight anymore, but Mash suddenly backed away and sat down. Silva asks what he is doing, and Mash tells him that there are 8 attacks. Mash stands up again, asking if he is ready for the next attack, but Silva knows he can't take it anymore. Silva thinks he is going to die and is trying to think of a plan, and at that moment, a huge scorpion suddenly appears. The scorpion has a star shape on its head that says it is very powerful and important. Silva thinks he can escape if Mash escapes, but Mash sends him flying with a slap, saying he doesn't have time to face the scorpion, and it drops the star shape on his head. Silva started to get scared, thinking Mash was a monster. Mash stopped their fight because of his pitiful state and turned his attention to the woman. The woman started to panic and suddenly cried and said that she was forced to help Silva. Mash told her that it was okay and that he thought men were too easy to manipulate. Mash believed in equality as he slammed the woman to the ground, and Barrett thought that there was something wrong with her. Later, Mash met with his friends and Lemo was worried when he saw him beaten, but he said that he was fine. Fiend boasted that he had even defeated the Starstone Scorpion, which was revealed to be worth 2 silver coins. Lemo thinks he should go to Norse's office and checks Barrett out too. Barrett immediately takes a liking to him, and Lemo starts to get scared when he thinks Barrett is weird. Barrett apologizes to Mash for thinking bad things and thanks him for his help. Mash thinks he's acting weird, so Barrett immediately threatens to beat Mash up, saying he did everything he could to make him be nice. However, Mash's pocket suddenly tingles as his silver coins turn into a golden coin. Lance mentions why the Langdorm is targeting them is for their coins, which explains why Silver is after him. He explained that Langdorm was basically Slytherin with people who valued birthright and bloodlines. In an attempt to stop Reef Raff from joining the Bureau of Magic, he warned them that Magalupos had been watching over a group of elite students from Langdorm. Mash mentioned that he didn't know that the dorms were being betrayed, and Finning reminded him of the sorting ceremony. After they were accepted into the academy, they were organized according to the outline of a unicorn. Every time the students touched its horn, did it happen? The unicorn would read their minds and group them together in the appropriate dorm. However, when Mash was called, the unicorn saw that he was only thinking about cream puffs. The unicorn panicked because this was the first time in the past century that it had a difficulty revealing a student. It tried to look deeper into its mind, but all it had was cream puff, and it just concluded that people who liked cream puff must belong to the Adward dorm. Milans continued to explain that the Modulupos were lying to the 7 top students of the dorm and Silva must be one of the minions. He warned Mash because of his coin. He had to be careful and go with the people from their dorm. But despite this warning, Mash completely got lost. While looking for his class, he saw a door in a room and was confused about how to open it. He wondered whether to push it or pull it. Meanwhile, Silver apologized for his failure. The leader of Langdorm was named Abel, and he was holding a scary doll. His Nabi said that their mission was to cleanse the world and get rid of the Dominites, while Silva asked for a second chance. But Abel called him unworthy of being a man, and he became a doll. The doll walked and continued on the line, and Abel's Nabi said that he was the only one worthy of being the next divine visionary, while he talked to his doll, whom he called his mother. But at that moment, Mash suddenly entered apologizing for breaking the door, and his prophet that Abel is weird because he talks to a doll. Abel knows that Mash has a golden coin, and he thinks that's why he's trying to become a divine visionary. Mash says that he just wants to live peacefully with his family, but that the world won't accept him. Abel thinks he's being ridiculous and unworthy, explaining how he wants to return the world to its rightful form. He says that humanity has improved because of the removal of the weak and people without dolls, but he thinks that society has started to weaken. He calls people greedy, so he plans to restore the natural order. But Mash thinks that he just wants to live in peace. Mash will not understand what he is saying, and Abel offers to release him in exchange for his golden coin, but Mash refuses. Abel attacks him with one of his puppets, but Mash steps aside to face him with his legs and tears the strings attached to the puppet. The puppet returns to Silva's form, and Mash thinks this is not a challenge. But suddenly, he is tackled by another puppet that he thinks is stronger than the first one. The puppet takes his golden coin and gives it to Abel. Mash is then thrown against a pillar, but Mash apologizes for calling his puppet weak. Suddenly, Silva stepped on his head, so he decided to take him to the infirmary. Abel asked him if he was going to get rid of his Borea, but Mash said that his priority was to avoid Silva and declared that he would not let them lose no matter how strong they were. Mash left with Silva, but Abel felt something was wrong. He noticed a missing button on his puppet and saw it in his hand instead of Mash's Borea. One of the students could not believe what had happened. As the puppet gave the Borea, Mash removed a string of strings. Not a button. He spat out the button very quickly and hit the Borea in the air and pulled the Borea back towards him. The girl couldn't believe it, and Abel noticed that Mash was interesting. Silva was running away because she couldn't remember anything after being turned into a doll. But she saw Mash exercising in front of her, and she noticed that Mash must have been avoiding her. She asked her why she avoided him when they were about to fight. Mash said softly that if one of them got into trouble, they would all get into trouble. When she saw that Silva was fine, Mash decided to leave, and Silva pondered her actions. Meanwhile, in Mash's dorm room, Naylands and Barrett were exchanging heated words. Lance commented on her new hairstyle, and Barrett said that it didn't matter to him. Lemo is more busty than men with bangs. Siphon asked what they were doing in her room. Barrett was a little annoyed to see when she thought her life was easy because of her good looks. Lance wanted to teach her a lesson, and the two prepared to fight, while Siphon started to panic. Meanwhile, Mash suddenly entered, telling them not to break things in her room. Barrett brought out a gift and gave them chaha, while he said it was natural to bring a gift when visiting someone's place. Fiend was surprised to receive it, thinking that Barrett had a good heart despite his shown. While Mash enjoyed the cream puff, which he thought was a peaceful day, Munir warned them not to be complacent, saying that they needed to strategize ways to get more coins. Lemo suddenly appeared saying that there was big news. Munit, seeing that she was the only girl, she was surprised by their surprise. Munit explained that she was the one who entered their room and snapped from there that they were taken to a magic scale. The scale showed how many golden coins each dorm had, and the Lang dorm had 15, while the Adler and Orca only had 1 each. The Lang dorm was. The other dorms were taking coins, and all the upper class of Adler were powerless to stop them. If this situation escalated, the Lang dorm would have the upper hand or the next divine visionary. Meanwhile, the Orca dorm was too busy with their research, so it was up to them to stop the Lang dorm. However, the group was so angry that they had to knock out the Lang dorm members, that Mash ended up in the owl hut. The head guru forced him to give him a punishment, so he had to clean the hut within a week. Lance even came with him and said that Mash might be targeted by the mob because he had a golden coin, and he would use it as a disguise, catching them. But Mash thinks that he is just worried about him. Meanwhile, 2 students from the Lang dorm are approaching them, preparing themselves to take Mash's coin. The owls continue to approach Mash, and suddenly water appears under him and he falls, and Lance is caught in a giant spinning weapon. As Mash sinks into the water, the 2 students introduce themselves as Andrew and Shinri, the 6th and 7th fans of Majalupos, challenging them to a fight with the golden coin hanging in the balance. Mash is Nabi, who cannot swim, dives underwater. However, Andrew turns into a shark and jumped into the water to chase Mash, which led Shinri to confront Lance. Shinri attacked with his weapon, but Lance dodged, thinking that his magic was a bit weak compared to his gravity magic. However, when he tried to cast a spell, the owls attacked him. Lance dodged another attack and tried to focus on the spell, but he remembered what his sister had told him not to be hit by the owls. Shinri attacked with the double blades, and Lance noticed the owls behind him, so he was hit by the attack. Shinri saw that Lance's one was made of magnolia, so he realized that Lance was from the Crown family who specialized in gravity magic. He heard that the Crown family's son had come to the house, and he thought it was because Shinri was feeling more powerful and superior, probably because he had defeated one of the Crown family. Lance managed to use his spell, but only 1 shovel fell to the ground. Shinri was disappointed in him and ordered Lance to finish him off with a final attack using the triple blades. However, he thought something was wrong when he noticed that all the owls were in one place. Lance used his gravity spell that crushed all the blades, and he said that since the owls were blocking him, he gathered them by dropping the shovel to open a bag of feeds and attract all the owls in one place. Shinri tried to attack with his strongest spell, but Lance easily crushed him with his gravity. Shinri couldn't believe that even though they both had double lines, the difference in their power was so big. But Lance said, someone like Shinri, who was fighting for himself to gain power, while he was fighting to save his brother, couldn't compare to him. Meanwhile, Andrew was happy about Mash trapping him in his sea fog, saying that there was no way he could escape. Suddenly Mash passed by, and Andrew was shocked by his speed that he couldn't detect. He thought he had imagined things when he passed by again. Mash was in front of him. He thought that Mash said that he couldn't swim. Mash thanked him for helping him now that he had learned to swim. Mash continued to pass by him, and Andrew felt like he was being chased. He used a spell to transform into a more frightening Anyuk. Mash almost hit him. He continued to be hit while Mash enjoyed it. Andrew couldn't handle his punches, and Mash got out of his sea folk. The lands took their golden coin, and they thought that they weren't that strong for being members of Majalupus. Mash thought that they didn't have any difficulty. Then another member of theirs appeared. In an instant, he passed both of them, and Lance tried to use his gravity spell, but for some reason his magic didn't work. Mash immediately took off his clothes and rushed at full speed, but the man managed to avoid him. Lance seemed to be using some kind of teleportation magic, but the man used a magic bottle to collect his companions. The man greeted them and said they would meet again soon, and Lance thought that defeating Majalupus might not be that easy. As the masked man continued to tease, his mask breaks and he thinks about Mash's attack. He wonders how Mash can move so fast without magic, and wonders if they are the same. At night, the mysterious man confronts a student from the Orca dorm for his golden coin. The student attacks with magma, but he is easily defeated and ends up in a very quick fight. Elsewhere, a puppet is roaming the school. The next day, Lance plans how they will deal with Maja Lupus. While hiding the location of each dorm, he suggests finding the Lang dorm and attacking to get their coins. But Mash was too busy with the Krimpets. Lance gave him a new robe and Mash noticed that it had a label on the back. Lance told him that it was the mark of Idware, hoping that it would make him feel worse that he belonged in their dorm. Meanwhile, Lemon suddenly came in and told them that something had happened to Tom. They visited him in the infirmary and found him completely distraught. Tom said that he had no memory of how he ended up in the infirmary, but he mentioned that he usually lived in the whole dorm, so he usually slept and didn't wake up. However, last night he was found trapped in a dark box. He has consciousness, but he can't do anything. Lemon asks how he feels and Tom says he's fine. He can't use magic and feels like his magic energy has drained from his body. It turns out that other students are suffering from the same condition, and it started when the head guru of the Bureau of Magic called him. Lemon gives Mash a crimp of Lucky Charm and promises him not to do anything too dangerous. He tells Mash to always keep it with him so he can think of Lemon, but he starts to get a shiver thinking that he's dreaming about her. At night, Mash and Mash walk to the school to find Langdorm and with them Neighbor and Finn, but Lance wonders why they are together. Barrett asks why he is interested in getting some things, and Finn just doesn't want to be left alone in his room. While they are on patrol, they see Lemon and Barrett goes to her, but Lance notices something different about her. Lemon's smile is twisting and shaking like she has become a puppet while the group hides so they don't notice. She continues walking and Barrett realizes that she is cute even as a puppet. The group tries to follow her, but when they turn a corner they end up in a dead end. Finn heard the rustling of his body and used Ravello to reveal a hidden door. Lance noticed that they needed another spell to open the door and Barrett tried to use his fire bubbles to open it, but the door wouldn't budge and he wondered how they could get in. Anyway, Mash grabbed a suit of armor and threw it next to the door. He broke the door open and put the sword inside. He stomped on it until the door swung open and left the school. Lance realized that the enemy was probably waiting for them inside, and Mash looked at his good luck charm thinking that he couldn't make it work. His promise to Lemon. The group enters and is surprised to find a hidden space under the school. They see light at the end of the tunnel and emerge into an arena. A student named Getsuko appears and tells them that they must defeat him to pass. Lance realizes that he is the one to confront, but Barrett decides to fight because he has a grudge against handsome men. Barrett teases him about how great his life is, but Getsuko thinks he is just jealous and turns his one into a pink whip, and the two prepare for battle. In Montala, at the Bureau of Magic, Headmaster Wahlberg is talking to the director. Wahlberg knew he was called in for a serious issue as the director announced that 6 of the most notorious criminals on death row had escaped from their prison. All the guards were killed, and they were helped by a well-known figure named Innocent Zero. Back in the arena, Beret attacked with his fireball, but Getsuko stopped him. Getsuko hit him with his whip, almost knocking Beret out of the game. Getsuko said they were the ones who defeated Silva, and Beret added that he was the one. However, he called Silva a loser because even though Silva was a double-liner, he didn't use his power properly, and he was the one who killed him. Getsuko that he is stronger even though he is a single-liner. However, Beret is very confident that he will win as he attacks with a round of fireballs, but it hits the floor leaving marks on Getsuko's surroundings. Beret tells him to watch his step, saying that it is 5 times stronger than usual. Getsuko thinks that this is a trap, but Beret is sure that he will fall into it. Getsuko asks if Beret has a way to move him through the traps and attacks with his roseweb. Beret tries to defend himself, but his fireballs are not very effective and he is hit. Getsuko caught Beret before he could even let go of his one and immediately grew thorns on his vines that pierced Beret with spikes. Getsuko told him that the fight was over and hit him to finish him off. But Beret deactivated his trap card, which caused a huge explosion from one of the marks. Gitsuko's one was destroyed, and Beret mentioned that he didn't say anything about stepping on the marks, which showed that his spell was a time bomb. Beret deactivated the remaining marks, and Gitsuko couldn't believe that he had lost to someone like him. The marks disappeared and caused a huge explosion. Finn immediately beat him, and Beret was excited to face another opponent. Gitsuko then posted even though he was defeated, and the group started sinking to the ground. Mash tried to save his Krimpov, while they all sank to the ground and they crashed to the floor with the others as if they were all screaming. Lance suddenly felt a surge of energy, and Maddle faced him with the third fangs of Madhya Lupus. Beret and Finn fell at the same time, and Namilo and Love met the fourth and fifth fangs. Love saw that they were both single-liners, which declared that they were easy to defeat, and Finn realized that they would be doomed. Beret's Nabihanshin unit told him not to give up and that he thought he had the power of the main character of the story. Meanwhile, Mash went to a dark room, worried about where his friends were. The room brightened and he was greeted by a masked man who introduced himself as Razor, the second fangs of Madhya Lupus, and he was catching Mash up on his moves from their last meeting. He seemed to think that Mash couldn't use any magic, and Mash was worried that someone else knew. Meanwhile, Lance was facing Maddle, the third fangs of Madhya Lupus. Maddle explained how powerful everyone in their world is and that the magic is useless. Lance was not interested and attacked with his gravity magic. Maddle suddenly turned into mud and penetrated the ground. Maddle accidentally appeared behind him with some clones, calling his gravity magic interesting, and he rushed at it. Lance accidentally used his gravity spell, crushing them back into mud. Maddle told him that Sylvie was gone. As the mud began to transform, attacked with a spite that Lance could barely contain. Lance thought he needed to hit the real one to stop the clones, so he decided to attack the entire field with his Mahika. Maddle suddenly appeared behind him again, stopping Lance with his magic, and he attacked with a barrage of mod balls. He thought Lance was quite skilled in fighting, but he said that his talent was wasted. He could use it to serve Maddle Lupos. Maddle explained that monsters develop depending on their environment and the people around them. He called all the members of Adler trash, and told Lance that he would only stay at their level by joining them. He boasted about the talent they had in Maddle Lupos, including having the best education, skills, and potions. Lance mocked him, saying that his strength was not dependent on his environment, calling Maddle inferior. Lance attacked with his Mahika, Munitsa. This time his fighting style was different. He collapsed on the wall, which turned into mud, and he surrounded the room with mud so that anything that hit it would sink. Against gravity magic, which relied on knocking opponents to the ground, Maddle thought he couldn't lose. Lance just started attacking with rocks, and he realized that Lance only knew his secret. Maddle was forced to come out of the wall, and Lance told him that he should have a better environment because he was stronger. Maddle told him not to be arrogant, as he released magical essence obtained from other students. Drinking the potion that had become a shard of his power, he used an advanced form of his magic known only as Kondith. The monster emerged from the mud as a massive demon, and he continued to explain that there were different levels of magic. Psychon death magic could only be used by double-liners, and only by those who were worthy. Maddle remembered when he was young and his father explained that his worth was based solely on his ability in Mahika, so he focused on using his father's approval. He felt that he was worthy after achieving the level of his Mahika, telling Lance that he would not be as strong as he was if he continued to join his friends. However, Lance dodged his attack and wondered how Mash had helped him improve, while he showed that he could also use Psychon death magic to create gravity pillars that surrounded Maddle's monster. The monster was pulled by gravity from all sides by each of the pillars, and Lance created another one on top of it, causing the monster to tear apart. Maddle couldn't believe he had lost and wondered why his father didn't recognize him no matter what he had achieved. He thought his father was right and that he was worthless. Lance just threw his book at Lance and commented on how old it was and how hard he had worked to get to where he was. Lance tells her that his own family's value is based on position and social standing, so he thinks they were raised the same way. However, He thinks about his sister who just wants to be a singer and wants to try her best to help her figure out that is more important. Even though he doesn't agree with Madel's way of thinking, he respects her efforts and leaves to find her friends. Meanwhile, Masha worries that Razor knows her secret. Razor thinks they are the same because they were both rejected by the world, but he has his own reason for being there, so the two prepare for battle. Masha takes off her clothes and rushes with one foot to back away from Razor, but Razor suddenly dashes towards her and injures her arm. She tells Masha that she won't win because of her magic that boosts her speed. She moves at all angles, landing many hits, and says that this attack is on a different level. Masha refuses to give up, and Razor thinks that her dream of living peacefully with her family is abhorrent, since they have the same situation. Masha is lucky to have the people around her. He tells Masha to show him what to do, revealing that Lemon is running out of magic power and after 30 minutes she will no longer have magic like Masha. Masha vowed to destroy her, and Razor unleashed his magic, repeatedly slicing Masha as she attacked around her. Masha couldn't even bring herself to stab Chan. Razor said that she was too weak to defeat anyone, so she couldn't remove her sword as Masha braced her abs. She forced Masha to grab him and headbutted Razor in the face, breaking his mask and exposing his face. His eye was red. Masha thought it was bloodshot and asked Razor if he was okay. Razor explained that his eye was known as Evil Eye and had the power to disable anyone's magic. This manifests as a power from the devil, so she is seen as an outcast and rejected by the world. Masha apologizes because her eye doesn't work on her, and Razor explains that she is the one who naturally controls all the monsters, so they have all been afraid and harassed her all her life. Even though her family is afraid of her and thinks she should never have been born, Razor doesn't think Masha will understand because she was blessed with a loving father. Razor uses his Secandith magic to create a battlefield around them, and an arrow comes out of Mash's chest. In a flash, Razor kills another devastating attack that explained that inside the field, Mash's speed was reduced and transferred to himself. So he had no chance of winning because all he could do was protect himself. Razor told him that this was the end. Mash slightly broke the ground, splitting the floor and breaking Razor's sword. At this point, Razor realized that by splitting the floor his movement was limited. He thought about retreating. Mash slightly stepped on his foot, stopping him from running. Mash gained his muscle magic, which gave a very strong punch that shattered Razor's field. After his spell wore off, Mash immediately chased him and kicked in the back. As Razor threw himself, he thought that if he had lost, he would also lose his reason to live. As the two fought and clashed, Mash barely caught his sword and punched him, smashing him into the wall. Mash continued his attack and ended their fight with his submission attack. While Razor was lying on the ground, he wished he had been born normal. His evil was that he was a child and was the reason why his parents locked him in the basement so that people would not know about him. Sadly, after some time, his parents tried to kill him and concluded that he was no longer should have been born. However, Razor was given Lonan by Abel. Even though he was used as a tool, it gave him a reason to live. However, now that Razor has been defeated, he feels like he has reverted to being a villain. Meanwhile, Mash expresses how blessed he is to have his father's love, and he has been offered to be Razor's friend. Razor thinks it is impossible and says that it will only take a moment for his feelings for Mash to change. Grinning, in gratitude for his kindness, Razor warns him not to continue, saying that Abel is on a different level and has no chance of winning. Mash thanked him for his warning. Munjit decided to continue. He said that no matter what others thought of him, his feelings would not change and invited him to have a Krimpuf the next time they met. The opponents, Kinamilo and Love, the fourth and fifth fans, were bearing it at fee. Munjit had another student who found a secret door and prepared to enter the cave. Love saw that they were both single-liners, so he thought they would be easy to defeat. Milo decided to let Love fight alone and left to find Mash. Love immediately asked if they liked him. Munjit saw Barrett and Finn differently. Meanwhile, the two said they didn't know him, so Love started asking if they thought he was cute. Barrett could tell that Love was trying to seduce them. Barrett thought she was his type. However, he claimed that Lemon was his girlfriend, so Barrett refused to be with him and Love immediately told him to die. Barrett was surprised that he changed so quickly, and Love attacked with her tornado magic. Barrett counterattacked with a fireball, realizing that there was a big difference in their power to kill him. Love's knobby that all women are queens, that no one should live. A man who can't say girls are cute, and they should be turned down. Barrett thinks he's too great, and Love asks them if they want him back. Barrett tries to deny her, saying he already has someone he loves, and Fiend thinks it's a repeat. Barrett is hit by tornado magic, and Love reveals that his father said he can kill anyone who doesn't love him. However, Barrett gets up again and attacks with his flames. Love's magic is too weak, and the fireballs land, causing thick smoke. Barrett slowly turns to take his one, but Love notices this and attacks him, knocking him down. Love reveals that Milo's power is to turn his particular target into stone. Their target is the one who opened the door, so Masha will turn into stone if they don't defeat her and stop Milo within 30 minutes. Love locks Barrett in a spell and declares that it will be impossible for him to get out. Barrett is shocked inside the spell, while Love feels bad for Masha, because her friends are so weak, and calls her a fool for coming to fight Abel. Barrett's dam is about to die thinking that there is nothing he can do. However, he has a flashback to when Barrett was a child, where other children teased him to trade their old broom. The place suddenly explodes as his sister holds him back. She tells him that he should fight, but Barrett thinks that will only cause trouble. His sister thinks that he will give up easily, saying that it will be a problem when Barrett finds a true friend, someone who will stand by him no matter what, so he should fight for the people there. He thinks about how Mash held him back, and Barrett refuses to handcuff his friend. While Love goes to Finn, Barrett escapes from his tornado cage. Love is surprised that Barrett managed to break his spell and attacks him with. He was angry, but Barrett easily drove it away. Love wondered why his powers had suddenly increased and noticed the mark on his head. It was known as the Warden Cross if the child was born with it, which was considered a battle demon. They could unleash their magical powers when their emotions were in a tense situation. Barrett said that insulting his friends was a crime, while countless fireballs were released throughout the area. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion, but when the smoke cleared, it seemed to have been intentional. Then, Barrett stated that he didn't want to hurt women, so he told Love to just leave. Love thanks Barrett for his mercy, while Fina marvels that she defeated Love single-handedly. She praises Barrett, but a stone head suddenly appears behind her, and Barrett quickly blocks the attack. Milo turns back, wondering what is happening, and Love hums an apology for his mistake. Meanwhile, Barrett is happy that Milo has given up on turning Mash into stone. Milo prepares to destroy them, bringing out several stone hands to attack. However, Barrett thinks that he is about to collapse, and Love declares that Milo is a prodigy, since he is the only first year in Magilupos, so in her opinion, they have no chance of winning. When the stone hands were about to reach him, Milo was suddenly stabbed with a sword and was swept away. Fina recognized the sword and Milo ran away from what was happening. Milo was surprised and realized that his opponent was the divine visionary from last year named Rain. He was the ace of Adlerdorm, and he was also Fina's older brother. Milo was trying to regain his sanity, thinking that he was just a student. Milo attacked with his stone head. Rain easily split it in half. Rain brought out countless swords, showing his immense Mahika power, and attacked Milo with all his swords. Barrett is overcome by the power of a divine visionary, and Love immediately decides to leave Langdorm. When the dust settles, Milo realizes that he has no chance of winning, so he begins to beg for his life, saying that he was forced to be evil and that he regrets his actions. Munit, Rain's friend, says that actions speak louder than words and that he doesn't believe her. As he continues to stomp on her to teach her a lesson, Barrett is shocked by her violence and wonders if they are really rivals. Rain tells him to get out and declares that he will find the others, and Love quickly leaves. After his interrogation, Rain heads deeper into the dungeon because he was sent by the headmaster Wobber. He is ordered to find Innocent Zero, and Rain thinks his men are still there. He thinks they can hide their magic power. But then he suddenly comes across Mash eating a cream puff, and Rain sees that he has a strange aura. He thinks Mash might be one of the men, so he brings out a spider that can measure his magic power to see if he is really a student. Rain attacks with his sword, but Mash is easily defeated and wonders what is going on. The spider sees that he has no magic and thinks he is a bog, so Rain attacks again, and this time he released 3% of his power. Mash received his attack, but in the end he made a chair of swords. However, the spider saw that his magic was still 0 and he let Rain try again. Rain attacked with 10% of his power, and the spider thought that Mash had no chance of avoiding. But Mash practiced his swing, and he prepared a baiting stance. He pretended to be hit by swords and all of them fell to the ground. Tynalung Nairi was reminded of his name, and when Mash told him, he remembered that Wahlberg had said about a new student who was a bit strange. Rain looked apologetic for attacking him. Mash didn't accept it. Rain regretted what he did, so he gave Mash a cloth that had the power to heal wounds. Mash thought that he liked rabbits. He thanked Rain for his concern. Rain warned him about Abel, and Mash came to know how he was. Rain revealed that Wahlberg told him about his goal to become the next divine visionary. So it was natural for him to fight Abel, who currently holds the most Beria. However, Rain supported his goal to become a divine visionary who wanted more powerful allies. He warned Mash about Abel's doll magic and said that he might have a hard time against him because he doesn't have magic. Mash insisted that he would still do it. Rain wished him good luck and said that he had other things to do, and Mash thanked him for his help. Rain said that he did everything for his own good. Meanwhile, he remembered Wahlberg talking about how Mash valued his friends more than himself and how he saved his brother. So Rain hoped that he would achieve his goal. Mash found the last room, wondering whether to push or pull the door. As he tried to push, he thought about Lemon and that he had gone home to ruin. Abel was surprised that he was able to defeat Razor, thinking that Raining was the only student who could fight Abel. Meanwhile, Abel thought that he might be in the same position as a divine visionary, and Mash was a little worried that Abel would find out his secret. However, Abel felt better knowing that he was strong because he referred to him as a fellow superior being, which furthered his plan to eliminate the weaker classes. He believed that the weaker classes were being taken advantage of and given more rights, making them weaker in general. So Abel wants to get rid of them all. Mash wonders if he means those who don't know how to use any magic, and Abel says that they need to throw them out because it's not enough to just exclude them from society. Abel criticizes the unvaraged shivers and people who take advantage of the weak. Mash thinks for a moment about how Regro raised him. Mash did a double backflip when he was young, and Regro made him taste his first cream puff. He thinks about Regro telling him how proud he was to have him as his son, and Mash realizes that he can't be Abel's friend. Abel says that he's not just. Understandably so, he was called a fool. However, he decided that Mash's weak genes needed to be removed, while he sent his puppets to attack. Meanwhile, Love was walking while looking for Abel and was feeling weak after escaping from Rain when she saw the door of the room broken and was shocked to see Mash fighting Abel. Mash crushed one of the puppets, when suddenly acid rained down on it, and Abel told him to be careful. However, Mash grabbed a puppet head that he had broken, and Love wondered what Mash could do against the acid puppets. Mash threw the head hard and ended up knocking down all the acid puppets in one attack. Love can't believe what she's witnessed, and Mash wonders if Abel will consider himself weak if he loses. Mash confesses what he did to Lemon, but Abel says he doesn't know who he's talking about as he brings out his powerful puppets. He thinks Mash has no chance of winning, but the puppets fall, and Abel realizes that Mash has become stronger since their last meeting. Mash tells him that if he wins, he should let Lemon go. Abel attacks Mash because he's not just a man of words, and he realizes that he's using his strongest spell. Mash starts beating himself up, and he can't stop with his fists while there are strings attached to his body. He started to strangle himself, But suddenly the strings were cut off when Abel apologized for using such a method, saying that it was a shame. He brought out Fiend, who he had captured, and made him a puppet. Abel said that he had captured Barry, but he was too injured to be useful, so Siphon would be the entertainment. He controlled Siphon to rush, but Mash blocked his attack. However, he warned Mash that he could not attack because he could crush Siphon. He started beating Mash and told Abel that he had the option to kill Siphon himself, saying that people always want to believe they are good, but that is not their true nature. He accelerated the attack and Finn's axe was cut, but Mash didn't even struggle. He took out his golden coin and Abel wondered if he was ready to give it. Mash glared at him, but it cut the strings controlling Finn, and Finn began to transform as a human. The barrier returned to Mash, and he said that he liked him more. Abel used his spell to control Mash again, and Mash tried to fight, but Abel called it useless because it was impossible for a human to resist his power. Mash said that he was sorry for torturing his friends and made a move that broke Abel's finger. Mash was Westo while Abel tried to stop him. Mash barely managed to get away and kicked him in the face. However, Abel used his skill and Mash began to turn into a puppet. Mash was surprised that he was forced to use this spell. Mash completely turned into a puppet and said that it was all over. He approached Mash to take his barrier. It instantly turned into a cream puff and Abel was as big as a worm. Mash punched him hard and returned to being human, and Mash was happy that his cream puff was okay. Abel had noticed how Mash was acting like a puppet because his magic was blocking the electrical signals from his brain, so he shouldn't be able to move. Grinning, he realized that it was probably a spinal reflex, like pulling back after touching a hot object or moving your leg when your knee is not. There are certain actions that go deeper into the brain to quickly respond to external threats. Mash's cream puff triggered his reflexes, and Love thought it was funny that the cream puff was so important to him. Abel respected Mash's strength, so he decided to use the power he had taken from the other students. He used his secondeth magic to release a giant puppet, and he revealed that this puppet had the ability to move 100 meters of energy inside. He explained that the puppet would be made of invisible strings that would connect to his body while fighting, and Love was worried that he would also be hit by the attack. Abel's Nobby said that it would be impossible to resist his attacks, and that once Mash became a puppet, he would be played with until he could no longer recover. He released the strings that covered the entire area, and Abel's Nobby said that Mash should be killed by using his ultimate skill. Unfortunately, his puppet was destroyed and Mash was declared fine. Abel asked why he didn't become a puppet, and Mash's Nobby said that he just tore off its strings. Abel thinks this is impossible because the puppet strings are invisible and should not be able to be stopped by a normal person. Love is shocked by what actually happened and sees that Mash moved his body in a particular way so that the strings connected to him at different times. When Mash felt them on his left side, he immediately tore the strings while still controlling his right hand. Love can't believe his crazy trick, and Abel wonders if Mash is really human. Sino tries to attack with his puppet, but Mash keeps breaking it, and he ends up behind Abel. Mash grabs him as he jumps high and slams his head into the ground. Looking back, Abel remembers his mother. She was a kind and compassionate person, and although she was a noble woman, she still treated ordinary people equally, saying that it was just a coincidence that they were born with privilege. But one day his mother was stabbed. While she was distributing food to the poor, as she always did, one of them turned out to be Kim, who wanted all the food for herself, and who ended up getting stabbed when she fought despite believing in the goodness of humanity. She was so exhausted that Abel began to believe that the weak should be cleansed. She gathered the best people to be with her, people who were also not happy with what was happening in the world. He refuses to change his mind and says it is only natural for the strong to eliminate the weak. Masha says that she is wrong and that there are always bad people, regardless of their status in society. Since he won their fight, Mash asks for Lemon's location and Abel agrees to release all the students. Mash thinks that since he did everything for his mother's sake, he is not like that person. Abel releases his spell, freeing Lemon, and Mash sees him while Finn regains consciousness, and the three are happy to be reunited. While Lei is crying, Finn and Lemon call Mash a hero. Finn agrees, thanking Mash and apologizing to Lemon for being involved and thanking him for saving him. Barrett also comes forward saying that he helped too, and they continue to celebrate together. Abel can't believe he lost to the fools, and Finn comes to know what happened to Lance. Lance is walking through the dungeon and meets Rain. Lance narrowly blocks his attack, and Rain is surprised to counter his attack. His companion, the spider, reveals that his power is very strong and reveals that this is not really Lance, but one of Innocent Zero's companions. He explained how Rain had discovered his pretense, but Rain attacked before asking, saying it would be faster. Rain explained what Innocent Zero wanted at the school, and the man revealed that they were looking for someone. Abel was asked to help them search, but he didn't help. So the man left to kill him because they no longer needed him. Rain tried to follow the man, but Rain stopped when he was almost hit by a giant knife. The man continued on while Rain faced another enemy, but he was worried for Mash and his friends because the man coming towards them had power, as powerful as a divine visionary. Regro and Brad are worried about how Mash is doing at the academy, hoping he hasn't been exposed without any shame. Regro asks why Brad doesn't have to work, but Nabi says he's there to get some screen time. Mash and his friends continue to celebrate, and Abel wonders how long they'll keep fooling around. Mash makes an excuse. Nabi says he needs to go to the bathroom, and his friends are happy that it's all over. Meanwhile, the other students who were puppets have returned to normal, but a criminal suddenly arrives. They ask who he is, but the man just ignores them. Barrett thought about fighting him, but he quickly gave up and realized how strong he was. The man approached Abel and revealed that his name was Cell. He could see that Abel was struggling with someone and called him a wretch because he couldn't reach the school bus. Cell thanked him for his knowledge of the headmaster, but he suddenly controlled Abel's hands and started to eat Abel's food. Cell's Nabi said that he couldn't find what they were looking for, so they didn't need him anymore. However, just as Abel was about to die, Mash suddenly returned with a plate of cream puffs ready to continue their celebration. His friends told him that it wasn't time for that yet, and suddenly a fly landed on his nose. It tickled his nose, which caused Mash to sneeze and threw the cream puffs at Cell. His friends insisted that it was just a bug, and Abel managed to get free. Mash asked him to give back his cream puffs, and his friends couldn't believe that was all he was thinking. Cell threw the cream puffs on the ground, which surprised Mash, and Cell suddenly felt a headache as he wondered if Mash was the one he was looking for. Cell finished what he started as he lifted Abel into the air. Cell was about to kill Abel, and Mash tried to save him when Razor suddenly appeared to protect Abel. Mash quickly approached Razor and apologized, saying that he couldn't join him in eating the cream puffs. Mash gave him his magic handkerchief, and Cell was surprised that he wasn't killed by his attack. He realized that before he unleashed his magic, Mash threw a rock at him, changing the trajectory of his spell. Mash fought for them, breaking the ground and kicking a rock towards Cell. Everyone was surprised because the rock belonged to Lunasol, and she started licking it, saying that she would kill Mash if he continued to block her. Mash could see that he was a madman because of licking the rock. Mash said that he would take Razor to the infirmary and told Cell to get out of the way. Cell said that Razor only had 30 minutes before he could be rescued, so he wondered what Mash could do. He began to attack with his Mahi-Ka, which Mash smashed with his fists. Sissel realized that he was just talking and combined his Mahi-Ka with a stronger attack, and Mash was hit. Abel thought that Mash would not win because the difference in their strength was too great. He remembered how his mother had told him that they had a privilege only a few years ago, that he thinks Cell is too strong for them, and he thinks he is impossible to defeat. Cell continues to launch his Mahi-Ka, but Mash continues to block his attacks. Abel thinks Razor is a fool for ignoring him, but Mash's Nabi is happy that Razor is happy. Mash's Nabi is always alone, but Abel gave him a reason to live, and Razor was happy that he needed him. Mash decides to do the same as he feels thinking about himself in Razor's situation. Abel remembers what his mother said to put himself in the shoes of others to be kinder to others. Meanwhile, Mash continues to fight while showing how Razor has been feared his whole life. She was always alone, wishing she had never been born, until she met Abel, who took her in, and finally found a reason to live. She told Abel to run while she still could, and Abel thought she was noble, like his mother. Mash continued to fight them, and Cell wondered if that was all she could do. Abel saw that Mash had no intention of getting close to Cell and thought Barrett would try to help. But he was worried about protecting Nafine and Lemon. Cell started to get angry and attacked with bigger projectiles. Things didn't go well for Mash until Abel's doll suddenly protected her. Abel brought out his doll to attack, but Cell easily destroyed it with her magic. He told Abel that he had no chance of winning, but one of the heads suddenly moved, revealing Mash hiding inside, and Mash smashed Cell's face. Cell was protected by a suit of armor, but she was surprised that Mash had broken it. She asked what kind of magic Mash used, and Mash simply said that he used power magic. Cell thought his answer was funny, but she said that it didn't matter, as she took out a mirror. Barrett B recognized it as a spellfletch, a magic item that could deflect any type of attack using magic. This is why magic users fear this item. Barrett warns Mash, saying that they will never stand a chance against it. Cell tells him to use his strongest attack, saying that he will be crushed by his own magic, but Mash kicks him directly. His friends are shocked to realize that Mash's power is not magical, and they remember his past actions and think that he is something from a fairy tale. Cell is not surprised by Mash's attack, but suddenly she notices a mark on her hand, so she assumes that Mash is the one they are looking for. Suddenly, the room shatters and two giant hands appear. Cell said that she had urgent work to do, so she decided to step back and told Mash that she would see him again soon. Cell was gone while Mash was happy that the fight was over and thought they should take Razor to the infirmary. Abel said that he would be okay, thanking the magic handcraft shift, and Razor hoped to eat cream puffs with Mash the next time they met. However, Abel went with Razor and thanked Mash, saying that he would be back on a different day. His friends joined him and were surprised that he didn't have magic. They were worried that he would be in trouble if people found out his secret. And Mash pretends to be scared, saying that he can use magic completely. His friends decide to help him hide his secret, but one of the other students wakes up saying that he heard everything. He thinks it's funny that someone who has no respect in school is, so he plans to reveal everything about Mash. Mash realizes that his time has finally come, and his friends discuss what to do, and Mash decides that this is the perfect time to eat a cream puff. That's it. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.